Story 1. The gas station that didn't reflect in the mirrors. This happened to me in the fall of 2018 during a road trip through eastern Oregon. My girlfriend and I were driving from Boise to Portland, trying to take the scenic route, back highways, forests, two-lane roads. We'd left around 5 p.m., later than planned. Around 11:30 that night, somewhere outside of John Day, we realized we were low on gas. There weren't many options that late, especially not in that part of the state. Google Maps showed a place about 12 miles ahead, just a pin on the map, Highway Market. No reviews, no hours listed. We figured it was better than nothing. The gas station appeared like a set piece out of nowhere. Dim canopy lights flickering, 2 pumps, and a small store behind them with a single neon open sign buzzing faintly. It was the only structure visible. No surrounding buildings, just dark trees on either side, and the sound of gravel under our tires. She stayed in the car while I got out to pump. The nozzle was old, heavy, metal, the kind that clanked when you lifted it from the cradle. The screen was cracked and didn't light up. I couldn't tell if it was even working. I stood there listening for the usual mechanical churn of the pump, but nothing. Silence, no hum, no ticking of gallons, not even the faint smell of gas. I walked up to the store to ask someone inside. The bell above the door didn't ring when I opened it. Inside, it was too quiet. Not quiet like no customers quiet, I mean wrong. There was no music playing, the coolers weren't humming. The fluorescents buzzed for a second when I walked in, then stopped. It felt like someone had turned off all the background noise of reality. The first thing I noticed was the smell, or lack of it. No coffee, no detergent, not even dust. The place looked fully stocked, but the air was sterile. I looked around for a cashier. No one at the register. No movement in the back office. It wasn't abandoned. That's what I kept telling myself. The candy was lined up neatly. The floor was swept. A mop leaned against the wall in the corner, still wet. It looked maintained. Just paused. I knocked on the counter. Hello? No answer. My voice felt swallowed by the air. There was a mirror behind the counter, angled to reflect the aisle behind me. But when I glanced at it, I froze. The reflection showed the aisle, the racks, the freezer doors, but not me. I wasn't in it. I turned around, half expecting a prank or camera, but I was alone. I turned back. Still no reflection. I stared longer than I should have, moved side to side. Nothing. Then I heard something, a shuffle, soft, dry like cloth against linoleum, coming from the storage room. I stepped back. Still no one at the register. I called out again, "Hey, just trying to get gas. Is someone here?" Nothing. Behind the counter was a small doorway with a hanging bead curtain. It swayed slightly, like someone had just passed through. I didn't go further. I backed toward the exit, careful not to turn my back to the counter. When I stepped outside, the air hit me, sharp and cold, as if I'd been underwater. My girlfriend was still in the car, phone in her hand. "The lights flickered," she said. "I thought the power went out." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't think this place is open." She looked confused. "But there's a receipt on the pump." I walked over. Taped to the pump was a torn receipt, brittle and yellowing, the ink nearly gone. It was from Highway Market, all right, but the date said November 5th, 2013, 5 years ago. We didn't say anything. We got in the car and drove. No gas. Just silence, the kind that makes your teeth itch. About 10 miles later, we found a new station, a shell with LED lights and 3 cars parked outside. The cashier looked up and smiled like nothing was wrong. We didn't talk about what happened, not for weeks. Not until we found the receipt in the glove box again, tucked between the manual and an old fast food napkin, still dated November 5th, 2013, still perfectly intact. It was about 2 weeks later when we found it again. The road trip was long over. We were back in Portland, back at work, pretending things were normal. That day, we were cleaning out the car, getting ready to sell it. She reached into the glove box to toss out the old papers. Then she paused, held something up. "Isn't this that gas receipt?" she asked. I nodded slowly. She handed it to me. Same torn top, Same station, same impossible date, November 5th, 2013. But this time I noticed something else. The timestamp, 11:34 p.m., the exact time we'd stopped there. I flipped it over. There was faint writing on the back in pencil, just one word. Again. I didn't remember seeing that before. We looked at each other. Then she checked her phone. The photos from the trip, the one she took of the gas station from the passenger seat, were still in her gallery. We zoomed in. There it was. Highway Market. Only the sign was missing the Y. Highway Market. We hadn't noticed that detail before. Later that week, she asked me a question that made my stomach flip. Do you remember seeing any mirrors in the car after we left that place? I hadn't thought about it, but now that she mentioned it, no. Not the side mirrors, not the rear view. The next morning I went to check. The side mirrors were there, but the glass was warped, not cracked or broken, but wrong, like looking into water. I tapped it with my finger. It felt solid, but my reflection came back slow, lagging. She came out and looked too. Neither of us said anything. I opened the glove box again. The receipt was gone. We checked the whole car. Under the seats, in the trunk, nothing. We sat there in silence. No music, no cars on the street. It felt exactly like that store, like something was watching through the reflection. We agreed not to talk about it anymore, but I kept checking the mirror every few days, just in case it changed. It never did, not until months later, when we tried to go back. It took us a while to decide to go back, mostly me. She wasn't thrilled about it, but I had this need to prove something, maybe that it wasn't real, maybe that it was, I don't know. We traced the route backward, using the same saved location on her phone. The pin was still there, Highway Market. But when we got close, there was nothing, no canopy lights, no building, no pumps, just a patch of overgrown gravel and an old sun-bleached construction sign collapsed in the weeds. It said, "Coming soon, Highway Market." I got out of the car and stood where I remembered the store entrance being. The ground was uneven. A slab of cracked concrete was half buried near my foot. No building, no lights, just an absence. She stayed in the car. I remember glancing at the side mirror. I was reflected again, perfectly. But something behind me wasn't. I turned around. Nothing there. But the mirror had shown movement. We left, quietly. Neither of us asked any questions. A few weeks later, I looked up reports online. There's a theory, one I found buried in a thread about liminal spaces and dislocated geography. It said some gas stations exist once. Not haunted, not cursed, just borrowed from another time. Sometimes they show up before they're built, sometimes long after they're gone. But only once for you. If you find them again, they're just places that could have been, or never were. I kept that page bookmarked for months. One night I tried to find it again. The page was gone, 404 error. And when I checked her phone, the saved location had vanished. Now when I search Highway Market, I get nothing, not even old construction permits. But I know we were there. I know what I saw, and sometimes late at night, when I drive past mirrors on the road, I still check to see if I'm there. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. Story 2. He drove behind us without headlights for 163 miles. This happened to me and my cousin in the summer of 2021. We were driving back from a wedding in Santa Fe, heading home to Nevada through some of the emptier stretches of I-40. It was late, just after 11 p.m., when we passed through Gallup, New Mexico. We stopped to grab snacks and refuel before committing to the night drive. The plan was to tag team it. I'd drive until around 2 a.m., and then she'd take over while I tried to sleep in the passenger seat. The road was practically empty, the kind of night where the sky just disappears. No stars, no clouds, just black beyond the edge of your headlights. I remember the hum of the tires on asphalt, the heat rising through the vents, that weird mix of silence and engine noise that settles in when you've been driving too long. About an hour after we left Gallup, my cousin sat up straighter in the passenger seat. "You see that car behind us?" she asked. I checked the rear view. Way back, maybe 10 or 12 car lengths behind, was a pair of headlights. Dim. "Yeah," I said. "Probably someone else headed west." She didn't say anything. 10 minutes later, she spoke again. "They're not gaining on us." I looked again. Same distance. I checked the speedometer. 73. Cruise control steady. "Maybe they're pacing us," I said, "waiting for a chance to pass." "No," she said. "They're not trying to." Another 10 minutes passed. Still the same distance, not closer, not farther, just fixed. That's when I realized their headlights looked a little off. Not yellow like halogens, not white like LEDs. Dim, almost like parking lights, but too far apart for a motorcycle. I tapped the brakes lightly, just enough to drop a few miles an hour. They slowed too. Still same distance. I sped back up. They adjusted. I turned off cruise control and did it again. Slower, then faster. Every time, the car behind us matched. Perfectly. "Okay," I said, "that's not normal." We started paying attention. I turned off the stereo. No other cars passed us. No exits. No overhead lights. The road was flat and straight for miles. Just us, and whoever was behind. At one point, my cousin tried to snap a photo out the back window. The flash lit up the car's interior for a second. When the image loaded on her screen, the space behind us was black. Just black. No lights. But when we looked again in real time, they were still there. "Maybe the flash messed it up," I said, though I didn't believe it. We kept driving. Every once in a while, I tapped the brakes again. They adjusted, always keeping that same eerie distance. It wasn't just the distance, it was the consistency. No human driver reacts that precisely. Not in the dark. Not for that long. Around 1 a.m., we passed a mile marker. 142. That's when I made the mistake of pulling into the right lane and slowing way down. I wanted them to pass. They didn't. They stayed back. We went down to 60, then 55. Still, they kept distance. Not tailgating, not approaching, just hovering. Then they turned off their headlights. I only noticed because the road behind us suddenly vanished. No glow, no shine, just absence. I whispered, "They're still there." My cousin looked, and even in the dark we could still make out the faint silhouette. A shadow moving with us, matching our speed, no lights, no sound, just a shape, staying 20 yards back. We drove like that for almost an hour, from mile marker 142 to 163. We never saw the driver, never saw a license plate. We tried calling 911, but there was no signal, just a red X. At one point we considered pulling off, but that felt worse. Like stopping would give them permission. Instead, we kept going, until something changed. Just before mile marker 164, the car behind us signaled left. No lights, just the faint glint of its blinker. It moved into the opposite lane. It didn't speed up. It just hovered there, next to us, pacing. We both stared ahead, refusing to look. It stayed like that for maybe 2 miles. Then, just as we entered a bend in the road, it vanished. Not turned off, not passed, just gone. We didn't speak for a long time after it disappeared. I kept checking the mirrors. Empty. Nothing ahead. Nothing behind. At first I thought maybe they'd drop back, but the lights never returned, and even stranger, I couldn't hear the tires behind us anymore. The faint hum, the one you start to notice when something's been pacing you that long, was gone. Eventually, I pulled over. Wide shoulder, packed dirt. We stopped next to a green reflector pole and killed the engine. My cousin got out first. I followed. The night was warm, windless, too still. We both walked to the back of the car. There was no vehicle in sight, not even tail lights in the distance. That's when she pointed to the ground. Tire marks, not behind us, but in front, crossing the road, leading from the opposite shoulder toward where our car had been. They weren't fresh, but they weren't old either. 2 clean arcs, as if a car had come from the desert brush, crossed the road, then stopped right in front of our lane. We scanned the horizon with our phone flashlights. Nothing, no structures, no side road. No light. We got back in the car, locked the doors, and kept driving. I didn't care that I was tired. I wasn't stopping until the sun came up. We passed a truck stop around 4 a.m., just outside Flagstaff. There were 2 other cars in the lot. Bright lights, diesel engines. We parked and just sat there, not talking. Eventually, we both checked the photos from earlier again. Still black, still nothing. But when I checked the rear camera, the dash cam I'd installed 6 months ago, something made me freeze. The footage showed the car behind us, clear as day, a long, dark sedan, headlights dimmed low, following, consistently. But then came the moment at the bend. The car moved into the other lane, hovered, then in a single frame, gone. No swerve, no turn, just an empty road. We rewound and watched it again. At 1:57 a.m., it was there. At 1:58, nothing. I scrubbed back and paused on the final frame. There was something strange in the rear view, just before the car disappeared. A reflection, like our own car, but flipped. After we got home, I kept digging. I couldn't stop thinking about what we saw, or what we didn't see. I found a paper online, something from the late 90s, about mirroring hallucinations in long-haul drivers. It claimed that prolonged highway driving in monotonous conditions, especially in low-sensory environments, could cause the brain to generate phantom traffic, like your own car, doubled. Reflected, it explained the symptoms: consistent shadowing, fixed distance, behavioral mimicry. It called it the double. But what stuck with me was this: these hallucinations never show up on camera. They're visual, personal, mental glitches, except ours did show up. I uploaded the dashcam clip to my laptop. Frame by frame, the car behind us was visible and then gone. I took a screenshot and zoomed in. No plate, no registration sticker. The make was generic, could have been a late model Lincoln, but it had no brand, just a black shell. I called a friend of mine, a trooper who works in Arizona, asked if he could run the plate. I gave him the rough description, the location, and the timestamp. He called me back a day later. "There's no record," he said. "No traffic on that stretch between those hours, no sightings, nothing on radar." I asked him to check again. He got quiet, then said something I still don't know how to interpret. There was a report in 2009. Same road, same mile markers, 2 kids driving from Gallup. They said a car followed them for hours, never passed. No lights, then disappeared. I asked what happened to them. He didn't answer at first, then said, "They crashed, just past mile marker 164. I didn't ask more. I didn't want to know. That night, I deleted the dashcam footage. I thought that would help, but sometimes, when I drive at night and check the rear view, I still half expect to see something there. Not chasing, not passing, just watching and keeping distance." Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Story 3. The motel room that was already occupied by themselves. This happened in 2019. I was on a solo drive from Sacramento to Portland, a last-minute trip to visit my sister after her surgery. I'd planned to drive straight through, but somewhere around Eureka, the fatigue set in harder than expected. I wasn't far from the state line, so I decided to find a place to sleep for a few hours. Something cheap, no frills. I spotted a small roadside motel about 5 minutes off the main highway. There was a faded sign out front with peeling red letters, Echo Pines Lodge, 1-story horseshoe layout, empty parking lot. It was almost 1 a.m. Inside the office, the woman at the front desk barely looked up. She was older, maybe late 60s, heavy-lidded eyes and a chipped mug of something steaming next to her keyboard. I asked for a single. She tapped at the computer slowly, then slid a keycard across the counter. "Room 12, she said. I paid with my card. No ID was asked, no signature, just a quiet transaction. The room was on the far end. I parked right outside and grabbed my overnight bag. From the moment I opened the door, something felt slightly off. Not wrong, just off. It was too quiet, not the kind of quiet you get in nature, more like when a building is sealed up too tight. The room was clean enough, low ceiling, muted carpet, a single queen bed. But there were details that didn't sit right. The clock by the bed was blinking 12-ing, like it had lost power. The small armchair by the window had an imprint on the cushion, not flat, but lightly indented. The thermostat was set to 69, but the air felt warmer than that, and the mirror, mounted on the wall to the left of the bed, was tilted, slightly. It wasn't centered, not flush, just a few degrees off, like it had been bumped, but not adjusted, but not bumped outward, away from the bed, as if someone had turned it. I stared at it for a while. The angle was strange. It reflected the edge of the window and the lamp, but not the bed itself. I stepped in front of it. My reflection looked wrong, not distorted, but slightly behind, like the glass wasn't quite in sync. I reached out and touched the surface. Cold, still. I adjusted it, slowly tilting it back toward the bed. That's when I noticed something. Behind the mirror, in where the mounting screws were, the paint was darker, not fresh paint. Just a square outline, like the mirror had been moved recently. I let it go, told myself it didn't matter. I turned off the overhead light and turned on the lamp beside the bed. Dim yellow made the whole room look like it had jaundice. I sat down, opened my phone, scrolled through nothing. At one point, I glanced back at the mirror. It had slipped again, back to the original angle, pointing away from the bed. I got up, tightened the screws slightly, and repositioned it. This time, I leaned down to check the gap between the frame and the wall. There was something small wedged behind it. I slid it out, a matchbook. Echo Pines Lodge stamped on the cover, inside, one match missing, and a scribbled word on the inside flap. Don't. That's all, just the word. No punctuation, no context, just don't. I didn't sleep yet. I kept the lamp on and sat in the chair by the window. The imprint was still there, deep enough to feel. I pressed my hand into it. It didn't rise. I stood back, looked at the bed, and for just a second, the mirror caught my eye again. The reflection wasn't right. It showed the window, the chair, the lamp, but not me, not anymore. Eventually, exhaustion overtook whatever logic I had left. I turned off the lamp, lay down on the bed, and told myself I just needed a few hours. The pillow was cold, not in a fresh way, but in a way that suggested it had already been used. I adjusted it, but the shape didn't flatten. It had a defined curve, a shallow impression, right where my head was supposed to go. I didn't lie down on it right away. I just stared at the shape. It matched perfectly, not like a random dip in the pillow, like someone had molded it. I stood up again, checked the sheets, crisp, clean, folded at the corners, no stains, no signs of tampering. But that pillow shape, it stayed, unchanging. Eventually I lay down, resting my head in the indentation, and the strangest thing happened. I felt familiar. The bed, the pillow, the room. It all felt pre-lived, like I had already done this. Not last night, not another trip, but just before. I turned to my side. There was another pillow, untouched, flat. I reached for it and pulled it closer, then paused, because there was a faint scent on it. Not soap, not detergent. Something human, faint, male, like sweat that had dried hours ago. I sat up, checked the sheets again, lifted the corners. There was a receipt under the mattress, folded twice. I opened it. Room 12, handwritten, date, blank, guest name, blank, signature line, unsigned. No amount charged. It wasn't mine. I hadn't received a paper receipt. I folded it back and placed it on the nightstand. Tried to fall asleep. Every creak in the room sounded intentional, not random settling, more like pacing, like someone was walking just beyond the drywall. I rolled onto my side, closed my eyes, slept maybe an hour, then woke to the sound of breathing. Not loud, but near, not mine. It matched the rhythm of my own, just half a second behind, like someone copying it, mirroring. I opened my eyes. The mirror was tilted again, but now it faced the bed, and the pillow next to me had a new shape. I left just after dawn. Didn't bother with the front desk. Didn't want to talk to the woman again. I tossed the key on the counter and walked out. The air outside felt clearer than it should have, like the room had been sealed. I drove 2 hours before pulling over at a rest stop for gas and coffee. In the sunlight, everything felt more rational, until I checked my wallet. The receipt, the one I had from booking the room, was folded neatly in the back. I hadn't put it there. The paper was different, older, yellowed, but the room number was the same. Room 12. Guests. 2. Name, blank and blank. I stared at it for a long time, flipped it over. The word "don't" was written again, this time in ink across the back. Later that week, curiosity got the better of me. I called the motel, asked to confirm my stay. The woman on the phone sounded younger, sharper. She asked for my name. I gave it. She paused, then said, "Sir, we don't have a room 12. I repeated myself. She cut me off. "Room numbers stop at 10. You must have stayed somewhere else." I checked Google, looked at reviews, images, Echo Pines Lodge, room numbers 1 through 10. No mention of 12, no map showed a back wing, no photos matched what I remembered, not the bed, not the mirror, not the woman. I zoomed into the front desk photo. The counter was different. There was no keyboard, no chipped mug, no record of my stay. I checked my bank, no charge, no pending authorization, nothing. I called again 2 days later. Different person answered. I asked if they'd ever had a room 12. He said, "Only when it's needed," then hung up. That night I went through my bag, tucked into the side pocket of my overnight kit, where I always keep receipts, was the matchbook, the one I'd thrown away. Echo Pines Lodge, stamped on the cover. Inside, the same missing match. But now, a second word had appeared under "don't." Faint, smudged, return. I didn't throw it away again. I still have it, in a drawer, wrapped in paper. Sometimes I check the mirror in my apartment, just to make sure it's still showing me. But every once in a while, when I wake up in the middle of the night and turn my head to the second pillow, it's shaped like someone's already been there, and I don't remember sleeping alone.